The abbot should always remember what he is and what he is called, and should know that to whom more is committed, from him more is required. The well-disposed and those of good understanding, let him correct with verbal admonition the first and second time. But bold, hard, proud, and disobedient characters he should curb at the very beginning of their ill-doing by stripes and other bodily punishments, expounding the Lord's commandments in words to the intelligent among his disciples, but demonstrating the divine precepts by his actions for those of harder hearts and ruder minds. Therefore, when anyone receives the name of abbot, he ought to govern his disciples with a twofold teaching. That is to say, he should show them all that is good and holy, by his deeds even more than by his words, knowing that it is written, "The fool is not corrected with words." And again, "Beat your son with the rod, and you will deliver his soul from death." And let him not shut his eyes to the faults of offenders, but, since he has the authority, let him cut out those faults by the roots as soon as they begin to appear. Remembering the fate of Heli, the priest of Cyril, let him make no distinction of persons in the monastery. Let him not love one more than another, unless it be one whom he finds better in good works or in obedience, and the fear of hell and the glory of life everlasting. As soon as anything has been ordered by the superior, receive it as a divine command, and cannot suffer any delay in executing it. Who sees that his heart is murmuring, and far from gaining a reward for such work as this, he will incur the punishment due to murmurers, unless he amend and make satisfaction. For the obedience given to superiors is given to God. For if the disciple obeys with an ill will and murmurs, not necessarily with his lips, but simply in his heart, then even though he fulfills the command, yet his work will not be acceptable to God. The first degree of humility is obedience without delay. This is the virtue of those who hold nothing dearer to them than Christ, who, because of the holy service they have professed. But this very obedience will be acceptable to God and pleasing to men only if what is commanded is done without hesitation. Delay, lukewarmness, grumbling, or objection. But as for coarse jests and idle words, or words that move to laughter, these we condemn everywhere with a perpetual ban. And for such conversation we do not permit a disciple to open his mouth. I have set a guard to my mouth. I was mute and was humbled and kept silence even from good things. Therefore, since this spirit of silence is so important, permission to speak should rarely be granted even to perfect disciples, even though it be for good, holy, edifying conversation. Here the prophet shows that if the spirit of silence ought to lead us at times to refrain even from good speech, so much the more ought the punishment for sin make us avoid evil words. For it is written, "In much speaking you will not escape sin." And in another place, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Let us do what the prophet says. I said, "I will guard my ways, that I may not sin with my tongue." For speaking and teaching belong to the master. The disciple's part is to be silent and to listen. And for that reason, if anything has to be asked of the superior, it should be asked with all the humility and submission inspired by reverence. And from the 4th hour until about the 6th, let them apply themselves to reading. After the 6th hour, having left the table, let them rest on their beds in perfect silence, or if anyone may perhaps want to read, let him read to himself in such a way as not to disturb anyone else. Idleness is the enemy of the soul. Therefore, the brethren should be occupied at certain times in manual labor, and again at fixed hours in sacred reading. To that end we think that the times for each may be prescribed as follows. From Easter until the calends of October. When they come out from prime in the morning, let them labor at whatever is necessary until about the 4th hour. Let none be said rather early, at the middle of the 8th hour, and let them again do what work has to be done until vespers. Their weakness must be taken into consideration by the abbot. Weak or sickly brethren should be assigned a task or craft of such a nature as to keep them from idleness, and at the same time not to overburden them or drive them away with excessive toil.
Excellent. I've been waiting for you. Good. This is most likely the first time you've ever done this in your life. But it's easier than you think. Just a bit of practice and learning Latin. Here's the original, and here are the blank parchments on which you'll copy what you read in the original. Is that clear? Then you may begin, and try not to make a mess of it. But not long ago, a brother brought me a crumpled piece of parchment. He says he found it rolled up in a hole in the wall. The thing is, it was a page from Ovid. I'm glad you asked. There's one thing, a silly thing really. I haven't thought to mention it to anyone before. Not what, but who? Ovid was a great Roman poet. We have a few volumes by him in the library, but one of them vanished one day. In your free time, you could look for the rest of it. I'm certain you'll find pages from it hidden throughout the monastery. Wonderful. Keep looking, then. I'm sure you can find the rest. I'll lend you the key to the cabinet containing forbidden books, and you can look at the peculiar things we've accumulated there. That cabinet's strictly off-limits to novices, but you've earned my trust. I'm sure you'll recognize that those books contain nothing but dangerous gibberish, and there's a valuable lesson to be learned there. There appears to be a page torn out of Ovid. I imagine he hid them throughout the monastery. It might take you a while to find them all, but when you do, you can rest assured Ovid will return to his rightful place in the library. Absolutely! Eustace's wits weren't the sharpest, so I'm sure he didn't destroy any of the pages. The Art of Love is a sort of manual instructing young people how to find and maintain love. It's a lovely work. I don't understand what bothered Eustace so much about it, but as I was saying, he considered the book to be immoral and tore it up to stop it corrupting any of his brothers. If I knew, I wouldn't have asked you to do it. The pages of the book could be hidden anywhere, from the garden to the refectory.
Thank you, brother. It's of no great importance, but if you can find all 10 pages, I'll be most grateful.
A pity. It wouldn't have taken up much of your time. But if you happen to run into something... no matter. I won't keep you any longer. That's correct. They're here, safely hidden away from anyone who might be tempted to read them. Only the abbot and the prior keep such records. You could not. They are libri prohibiti, and the only people permitted access to them are the abbot and I. Although I see no reason why he or I would ever want to read them, no errors are made. Every book on the prohibited list is there for a reason. Who am I to doubt the wisdom of Mother Church? Forbidden works are full of heresy and blasphemy and witchcraft. If you ask me, we should burn them immediately, not archive them. If you could prove to me that you truly like books, then maybe. Unfortunately not. Those books were forbidden for a reason. Not even older brothers have access to them, never mind novices like you. Now I believe I can guess what happened. Brother Eustace, may the earth rest lightly on him, was quite narrow-minded when it came to classical literature. If a book had any mention of woman at all, he condemned it as a heretical work. If he'd had his way, all such books would have been burned. Ovid's The Art of Love must have been such a thorn in his side that he stole it from the library, tore it up, and hid the pages wherever he could.